So, are you curious?
Welcome to the Curiosity Codex. I'm your ardent enthusiast, Kyle Olson. Some say the secret to real estate is location, location, location. And the secret to good filmmaking is preparation, preparation, preparation. Today, Mandy Fabian takes us through all the planning that has to happen before a shoot, from shot lists and storyboards, finding out which songs you can use, and even what brands you're allowed to show. She tells me all she's learned. Plus, we'll talk about working with actors, including how she directed an actor in a very intimate moment.
Chapter 13, A Nerd for Entendres.
Okay, so we're almost to calling action the first time, but the difference between a bad movie and a good movie is preparation. So we have talked a lot about all these things along the way. So what is left that we haven't talked about that goes into pre-production before we actually get to launching the show?
There were a couple things that were really crucial to my first time, and so I wanted to share them because, you know, for anybody out there who's like, I want to make my first feature, how do I do it? You know, this was advice that ended up being like my saving grace. One thing is, I think we talked a little bit about shot listing, so I don't have to go into details or whatever. But for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's like you prep every shot, you imagine every shot, how you're going to cover every scene, you block it in your head. You know where the characters are going to be. You know where you're going to get, this is going to be a 3. It's going to turn into a 2. And then I'm going to get a single. I'm going to put A camera here, B camera there. Although I really only worked with one camera for most of the time. Some people do shot lists, like writing them out, like, you know, A cam master 2 shot, you know, B cam single close up of such and such. I had close ups, you know, you figure out ways for when people are moving to have one close up of one character turn into another close-up of another. So it can be a really dynamic, interesting, cool process where you're shooting the movie in your head and then writing it all down on paper.
Now, are you actually like actual full storyboarding this?
I do stick figures.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd say I have no artistic ability, so I know.
Yeah. If I was doing,
I've
seen people do some real storyboards if it's a very complex kind of action scene. If that was the case, I probably would get an actual storyboard artist because I think that is invaluable. You know, for me, I can put heads in places, little stick, you know, happy face with squiggly hair on top, heads to sort of get an idea of perspective and then how I want figures to move through the frame. And then because it's general enough, it gives everybody an idea of what we're doing and it reminds me what I want. Then I can rehearse it with the actors. And so when I go in, I'm not like, what should we do with this scene? Although there is a little bit of that, which is why you always if you haven't seen the set, right? Like, so we were building some of the sets as we went, and I would go in and see it for the first time, like, you know, half an hour before we were about to shoot. So I'd have to sort of get an idea of how whatever my shot list was, how that's going to work with the blocking for that specific set. And that's the thing that you have to do when you're there. But in terms of prep, the shot listing and prepping like that, so you at least have some idea, so you're not starting from scratch, is the way to do it. And then I called a woman I knew who had directed a couple features, and she gave me the best advice. She said, don't drink coffee all day because you feel tired and you're going to want a cup of coffee, but it's actually going to make you more tired. Go for like water, green juice, or herbal tea, but do not drink coffee all day. And that turned out to be fantastic advice. And I only really, it was good also because it got my body off coffee so that when I really, really needed that, like, let's do this, mother, you know, like then a cup of coffee was just the right, like, it was like I had done cocaine. It was crazy. Now I've never done cocaine, so it's probably nothing like doing cocaine, but my body had I was ready for, like, the coffee really made a difference at that point. She said that, and she also said, think about transitions, which is something you definitely do for episodic television, but I hadn't really considered it for the feature, which is like, don't forget to, you know, get yourself B-roll of a night sky and get yourself some
shots and
animals in nature and make sure you get Yeah, exactly. Establishing shots and all that stuff. But not just that. It was also like, so I had a scene that was like there's a wine tasting scene, they're all arriving at camp, and then there's a wine tasting scene, and there was nothing really. There was like a scene of her talking to the groom at the picnic table, and then the next bit was like the wine tasting scene at the same picnic table. And so it was important for me to go through and go, oh, well, how am I going to make that transition without without like a chyron coming up saying, 20 minutes later. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also it gave me an opportunity with those transition pieces to develop out some of the characters, right? There was this one character, this one guy in the movie that I was lucky enough to have an actual actor, amazing actor, Drew Rausch, come up and do. And he was so good. But I wanted his character to be justified. He didn't have a lot to do. He wasn't one of the main friends. But so I used transition pieces to give him an arc of this is the guy who shows up, drinks too much, disappears, drinks too much again, disappears, So it was really that transitions was, and also it helped me. Like I put out every scene, I cut up my script, I put out every scene on my kitchen table. And then I looked at how everything flowed and I picked transitions for places that needed them. And then I took those transition cards and I typed them into the script so that when we showed up, there was no mysterious, it's only in the director's head that she wants to get them walking in the field. It was scene 64A. Nate and Wendy go to the cabin to get their sweater, right?
Yeah. So in a big budget thing, that's where you would use the stand-ins, because you're not going to have the person just walking along the thing. Basically, it's like backs to camera, walking into the room, and then you just hire two other people to do it, because you're not going to put Brad Pitt in the jacket and just have him walk. Like, no, you're going to get right. Steve, put him in the same costume and have him do it. But when you're doing it, obviously you're.
That sounds very exciting. For my next project, my next ultra micro low budget project, I'm going to hire stand-ins, because why not? That sounds fun.
Sure. Right. I had a friend who was a lighting stand-in. And so like he got to,
really?
He got to on a Sandra Bullock movie. So I mean, he wasn't doubling Sandra Bullock, but he got to basically he was there on set and just like sitting around watching, and then they'll be like, they'd cut and they send away and they're like, okay, we need just lighting. And he'd just walk in, stand on the mark and just be like, yes, I happen to physically resemble one of the actors. So this is my job,
Yeah. They do that.
Still a vital part of the machine.
They do that on all the TV shows too. The big TV shows.
Did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But no, my wonderful indie actors did not get that. Really, neither did my DP get the luxury of like, okay, stand there. Now let's light it perfectly. We were shooting, 10 days up the camp. Well, no. Did we shoot 10 days up? No, we shot 15, 30, I don't even know. 13 days up at the camp? I don't even know.
Well, 2 weeks. We'll say 2 weeks.
Oh, it was 2 weeks. So actually, it was probably 10 actual days of shooting.
Okay.
I don't remember. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So did you keep to all of those transitions? Or did you get better ideas once you were up there doing? I mean, obviously the important thing is you had the list. Like you went in there these are the things I have, because at the very least you got to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
But do you remember anything that you finally it would actually be better if we had this or these crossed over, or these two actors should show up, or did you stick to what your plan was?
I really got it was more that I gave up transitions that I realized I didn't actually need.
Okay.
I would say, they'd be like, what about this thing? And I'd be like, nah, it's okay. We don't need it. And I would know based on something else.
Did you find that in editing, or did you find that in shooting?
No, in shooting. Based on, because that's the other thing. So you've got the script that you wrote. You've got to keep track of that story. And then you've got that pretty much shot listed, although I found that it was, I had to wait and shot list some of the stuff after I got up to the camp, just because it's so much preparation. And also it was helpful to me to have a fresh take on something, right? To know that I would go, this is the sad thing. I did a movie about friends hanging out, and it was this beautiful location, and everybody was eating dinner together, and they'd have movie nights together. And I loved all the actors so much. I wanted to be friends with them, but nope, I would do my work, I would eat, and then I would go back and I would prep for the next day. I would look over, what are we shooting? What did I shot list? If there was anything that I knew based on what I had learned, either needed to be additionally shot or could be overlooked, or the location is different than what I had imagined for my original shot list, or simpler ways to shoot it because now we have less or more time, stuff like that. It was important to get myself in the headspace of the next day. And that is what my friend Tara Mealy, she's the director that I called and said, and she was like, here's what you got to do. You got to drink plenty of water. Don't drink coffee all day. Do your transitions, prep the next day. She was really, she was like, work out. I know you're going to be exhausted, but keep exercising. Get your body's a machine. Feed it right and
don't stop.
Yeah.
Because you got to keep, because you stop and then suddenly it's rest time and then shut everything down. No, we got to do this again tomorrow. Got to keep going. Got to keep moving. Got to keep going.
I was going to say, the other thing I think, in order to be able to sleep, because you're so wired after a day of directing, I listened to audiobooks.
Oh, because
I couldn't, if I just tried to sleep, even with music or white noise or something, I couldn't turn my brain off. But if I forced my brain to listen to someone trying to tell me a story, out like a light. Isn't that funny?
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it fiction or nonfiction? Did you really need someone to tell you nonfiction? Okay. So it was people telling real stories. It wasn't
it was actually Michael Singer is this guy who he's written 2 books. Well, I think he's actually probably written more, but one is called The Untethered Soul and the other one is called The Surrender Experiment. And it's kind of like a spiritual book, all about letting go and following, The Surrender Experiment is actually a really interesting book. It's just an interesting story because it tells about him, kind of dedicating his life to meditation and how he started just going, whatever shows up, I'm going to consider that a blessing, and then I'm just going to follow that. And he tells a story about he buys land and people decide to build a house on his land and he doesn't say no because he's like, I guess this is meant to be. And people ask him to do something and he doesn't have the money for it. He's like, I guess I'll just do it. And then the money shows up and it's a really cool story about stuff like that. And now that I think about it, I was listening to that book, but also that was kind of how I wanted to do the movie. I was determined to have a good time because I was like, I don't know when else I'm going to get to do this. Hopefully, yes, I will if it's a success, but who knows, right? This may be the last and only time I ever get to do this. And I am going to enjoy every second. I'm going to milk joy out of every second. I'm going to love every second. And so if there ever was an obstacle, you had to see it as this has to be a gift, right? And that's part of the fun thing about filmmaking is, I learned that on my second short is, an actress was late. Oh no. It was blew our whole schedule.
While she was waiting? Yeah.
But because we had to shoot in the afternoon instead of the morning, we got this great afternoon wind and it was a little bit overcast and it added all this drama to the scene. And we had to shoot it quicker, which gave us this great handheld thing. It turned out to be the perfect thing for the scene. And it was all because there was a big accident earlier that day.
Huh. Well,
so I always
being able to roll with it. I think that's the mark of a great director.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. A calm director.
Yeah, I guess. Well, you only control so much. It's and how you respond to it, whatever it is, weather, late actor, budget cuts, whatever it is, a sudden storm, locusts, these things that happen when especially around your location.
Oh, if I had a nickel for every locust story,
Did you have any bug issues? I mean, up in the woods?
No, California is so great, It's just not buggy. It's not super buggy. We had a bear.
Nice. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Came investigating to see what you guys were shooting?
It investigated some trash.
Okay.
And it made people a little nervous, but overall, no, it was good.
Okay.
All good.
Did you get any B-roll of the bear?
Mm-mm.
I mean, that would have added some real production value.
No, he or she was a night critter.
Okay.
So yeah. No, we didn't. But I wish I would have saved that footage for my next film and made it a horror.
Oh yeah, saying you wouldn't even have had to pay the handler. Like it's an unrepresented bear. It's representation.
That's good budget thinking.
Yeah, so so at night were you looking at dailies, or were you all just like looking for the next day? I mean, like you started when you finish the thing, then you're already like shift your brain into, all right, I did all that. What's next? Or would you actually look back at what you had so far?
I did not look back at anything. Now what they would pull stills. So we did get to see stills from, which is a brilliant idea, because of course now I need all of those stills, or I need a selection of them, and I don't have to go into the movie.
For promotion.
Yeah. So Blake Snotter was our DIT, and he went through and he pulled all these stills, and then
and that's from the footage, right? He wasn't like photographing on set.
No, that's that's the onset. We did have an onset photographer who was doing behind the scenes pictures. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And footage too, or just pictures?
We also had a lady. She was only there for a couple days, I think, but that's like for our electronic press kit. She came up and she interviewed everybody on camera, and I'm sure they shot some video of when we were shooting a scene or something. Yeah.
Right, so you got your EPK. Nice.
Yep.
That's nice.
Yeah. You have to sort of do all that
for a featurette, maybe.
Well, it's interesting. You mean like a little behind the scenes, like, ooh,
sure.
Yeah, that's the idea, actually.
That'd be super fun.
Yeah, it's part of when you're making a movie that you're now going to actually make into a piece of art that you're actually maybe going to try to sell or have any life in a marketplace at all. No matter what happens, best case scenario, right? Fox Searchlight is like, oh my God, where have you been all our life? And then they buy my movie, and then they do all of the posters and the trailers, and they promote it. And, it's like
immediately change the name.
Yeah.
Because that's what studios like to do.
Right. It's like, it would be great if that happened. But usually what you have to do, and it really helps develop everything about your movie, is you have to come up with the idea for, well, what does the poster look like? Who is my audience for this movie, right? Like for my film, it was a not behind the scenes. It was a wedding in the woods, college friends, and I'm a first-time indie filmmaker, right? And most of us were women. So that gives us 5 niche audiences right there, right? Women in general, because, like these women like these movies. Generally, not to stereotype, but generally.
No, I say that it's like different.
Yeah,
stuff.
like
there's a reason that you can target a specific audience.
Yeah.
You put somebody with superpowers in a cape, I'm probably going to see that movie. Like I'm just as much of a victim or a fanboy as anybody else.
Female filmmakers or supporters of female filmmakers would be part of the audience, right? Anybody who's into camping and outdoors because it's a super beautiful, fun, anybody who's into wedding stories, any brides engagement and all that. College alumni, best friend, college friend groups, and then indie filmmakers, because so much of our story is how we managed to do this with so, few resources. Not few resources, but like we did it low budget. We pulled a lot of favors. We had a lot of grit and guts that went into making this movie. And I think it would be inspiring that's why we're doing this podcast, right?
Right. Are you thinking about that like while you're shooting? Or is this no. Afterwards you're like sort of when you now shifted to, okay, I have the thing. How do I present the thing to get an audience?
I am so happy you asked me that question.
I know we're sort of jumping ahead, but like as we're talking about it, like I've never thought about this before. Yeah, so like this is super exciting to me.
So many people do not think about this, and I'm so grateful that I am on Sundance Collab and all of the female filmmaker websites and all the people who are trying to help indie filmmakers like me. They've told me time and time again, I went to all the how to market your indie film because if you're in it alone, you got to figure out a way You have to figure out tools, marketing tools. You have to do all of that. So you absolutely cannot wait until the movie's over. You have to think about all that stuff before you even shoot.
Wow.
And sometimes also if you're going to do it for fundraising, right? Like if you are going to be asking people to give money to your movie, it's really helpful if you have an idea of, if you have a poster, that's great. I did not because I wanted to feature the cast, and we're going to figure out the design of the poster now that we really know what the movie we have. But like we had a log line, the one sentence thing of what the movie is, a tagline, a title and a tagline. We really worked hard on that. And we
having had to do that, like that is way more difficult than people think. Because like you even have the thing, you came up with this idea, you wrote it, you shot it and stuff too, but then take everything you've done in the 90 plus minutes that this movie is and give me one sentence to sell it to someone. Oh my gosh. And I've been there. So I've been having to like, you go down to each word. Is that word important? Is there a better word than that word? Like do I need, how long can I make this sentence without it being ridiculous that it's a really long sentence? Yeah.
The fact is 8 times out of 10, and I'm only going to give it 8 because I still really think that not every movie fits into every formula, but it's true. If you can't tell the story of the movie like that, you probably need to work on your story.
The elevator pitch. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, there's a protagonist, they want something, and by the end of the movie, they either have it or they don't, and they have conflict in between, and you need to be able to put that in a sentence. But we thought of all that stuff also because we were thinking of partners, right? Like I wanted to see if we could partner with REI or North Face, if we could get camping gear, donated. Now we ended up doing the movie shooting. Everybody was in cabins. So we didn't actually feature tents and camping gear as much in our movie. But, those were ideas for relationships because it's still a movie that happens about a wedding outside and they're in the middle of nowhere. And that will be a future. I've seen North Face and REI have partnered up with films before. And it's this great like cross promotion idea that you have. And I don't want to, if you can establish that relationship ahead of time, that's great. And also as I'm an indie filmmaker, thinking about making a movie and promoting a movie, I hear a filmmaker on a podcast talking about their film and I go, and I go to my PR page and I write down that podcast so that when we go to promote, I'm not going to be on the internet all day looking for over the year and a half that we've been going through this process, every idea and spark has gone onto this page. So now you go, this is how we're going to launch. This is how we're going to promote this. You learn from other people and then you collect that information and get your campaign and marketing strategy ready to go. So when it's time, it's time.
Okay. So then, so you're thinking about all this stuff as you're getting ready. So like you're already thinking about how you're going to sell the movie too. So, cause you also need to get that footage. Are you thinking about the trailer as you're shooting?
No.
Okay.
You're thinking about the trailer when you're writing because you need to have trailer scenes, right? But also, but the point is, it would have been too late for me to get behind the scenes of my movie electronic press kit after I'm done shooting the movie, right? I needed to prepare. I needed someone shooting photos, still photos, and I needed someone to come up and do a press kit, right? So my producers were great in helping to facilitate all that stuff and thinking strategy for that stuff.
Because you really need somebody dedicated to that because everybody else obviously has their job. You're not going to have your DP do it. You're not going to have your, there's... They got work to do. You need somebody who just their job is just stay quiet, stay out of the way, find your moments, and then hey, that person's not working. Could you sit down with me and let me ask you a couple of questions?
Yeah, we really had to divide and conquer because, right, the marketing is going to be so important. Having the ideas and the exposure is everything for the life of a movie. It's so important for an indie film. But also, if you focus too much on that and not enough on making the actual movie, then you won't have a great movie. So when it's, I did all of that. I did all that stuff prepping the 6 months leading up to it, right? When we're musing about casting and location and all that, then you get into the, oh my God, we're shooting in a week or we're shooting in 2 weeks, hardcore prep. all your decisions have to be made. The contracts have to be signed. The insurance has to be gotten. The script has to be cleared. If it's not cleared, you have to change. Change things in the script. Okay, so for example, I had a joke in my movie that was the lead character, like she does a teen blog kind of thing, and she jokes that she's going to do like a teen tween dating site, and she's going to call it Tinder. Thank you.
That's a good joke. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I thought it was a great joke. But apparently there is a website or a thing called Tinder.
Of course there is.
It's not what you would think. It's actually, I forget what it is, but it exists, right? And there's certain like character names that I used that they're like, oh, that's a real person. Or or I have a Vassar sweatshirt in my movie and I needed to clear it with Vassar that it's like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah, there are things that if you're going to show brands or if you're going to talk about something, you have to clear it. Now, some of it, for example, the Vassar sweatshirt, I did get it cleared because my character is, she does some pretty outrageous things and it's a story point. So I kind of wanted to just check in with Vassar and make sure they would be cool with it. But it would have been fair use there is sometimes you can have like sometimes you can have a Coca-Cola can sitting there and it's fair use, but honestly, you should never take that risk. Every drink that we had, every glass of wine, bottle of wine, beer, they were all donors from small mom and pop companies that wanted their products placed in the movie. So any sort of brand or anything that anybody sees is something that has been cleared in my movie.
So who is it that's going through the script and looking at that stuff? Is that the producer's job? I mean, I know if your job is everything, I know, but like, who is it that's going like, you might have a problem with this?
It's my job to try to take out anything that's too specific, in the first place, right?
Okay.
Like I had to take out that the brother arrives listening to Pour Some Sugar on Me by Def Leppard because obviously we can't get that song, right? So I had to do things like that.
Getting that song is probably more than the budget of your movie.
Right. As we move toward production, I needed to be as exact of a roadmap as possible for the production crew to know what the vision's going to be. And it needs to not be what my writer head wanted, but what my director head knows we can get, right? I had to plan for things like, there's a moment where she sees a picture of these two actors on a website, right? Well, before we ever get to, I have to plan what that picture is going to look like. I have to make sure we have the wardrobe for that picture. And I have to tell my first AD, there needs to be a time in the schedule where you can take these three actors. Here's how I want this picture to look.
Oh, right.
I need you to get this photo for me of them at a baseball game, quote unquote, like not real, so that we can then go back and put it on the website that you see in the first scene of the movie. So you really, every small little piece you have to, plan out, and clearance is one of them. You hire a company. There's many of them, and they go through your script and they flag anything that could be potentially risky. And you go, I'm comfortable with that risk, or I'm not comfortable with that risk and I'll change it. So the Tinder joke might have been fine, but I ended up changing it. And I ended up using a joke that has no association with any company at all. So it could be, yeah.
Did you have to have 5 or 6 different ones before you're like, nope, somebody has that. Nope, somebody has that.
Yeah, I went, well, actually,
surprised.
I had the actress record the joke with Tinder because I love it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Then I had her do it with Tweender.
Okay. Oh,
which is there was not a Tweender, but and then we had a the joke we actually went with is overtheshirt.com.
That's pretty good too.
Which doesn't exist. But I had a real fun time.
I think you might want to grab it. You might want to grab that because somebody is gonna get it beforehand.
Oh my God, you're right. Well, we were so excited. One of the things, as we were prepping for this movie to go shoot it someday, this is months before we had a green light. We were like, okay, we are going to sell so much merch for this movie. There are certain lines of dialogue and ideas from T-shirts and stuff that we were so excited about. And that should be one of them, overtheshirt.com.
Yeah.
On a t-shirt.
Yeah. And you need
brilliant.
a logo.
Yeah.
You need a tagline. I mean, yeah. And you need to grab, and you can even just have it redirect to, your official movie website, which I assume you'll have as well.
Yes, we are building that this week. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So get that. Make sure that's $12 well spent, because if not, somebody's gonna take it and park it. And
we also, before we announced the movie, because they announced the casting of our movie in the trades, right? And we put up Facebook, Instagram, like we have profiles everywhere. They're not super active right now, but we built them because we don't want to be to the end of our movie and find out that we picked the title based on, things that were available. Like my original title for the movie was Intense.
Okay.
And I loved it because it was a triple entendre, because they were actually going to be intense.
Uh-huh.
It was an intense conversation.
Yeah.
And there's also intents and purposes, right? What is your intent?
What is your intent?
So I'm a nerd for entendres, and I was like, it's the best title ever. But it turns out intensemovie.com or whatever is a horror movie. And I was like, I never, ever want people to look at my movie and find a horror. I want a fresh, So that was another thing we had to do is we bought the domain before we ever shot a thing to make sure that we would be set afterwards. So those, in
the 21st century world, unfortunately, that is something you need to do, and also all the socials and stuff too. Ugh.
Yeah, just to be able to. I don't think I don't think of socials. Well, I'm not on social media a whole lot. I think of it more as like a placeholder, because that's what I do on social media. Is I check people out. I check them out to see. They did that. Like for me, I don't want to see what you had for breakfast. I want to see, like, you know what I mean? Your top 3 projects or what you normally work on should be there, so I can look at your feed and go, oh, I get it. You know what I mean? I use it that way. And for a movie, I think, like, I looked at the Coda Instagram. I'm sorry, now we're in marketing. We can talk about that later.
It's insidious, though. Like,
it really is, because that's all stuff that happens later.
It's a whole other beast in itself. So,
but those are all the little details that you are doing before you're getting up to shooting. Right? Who's running crew members up and down the hill? Transportation, right? Who's picking up lenses and gear and all that? Yeah. That all has to be decided.
Vehicles and who's moving people. Yeah. I
had actors singing songs in the movie, and I had to send them recordings of the songs with their parts and say, learn this. This is, you're going to need to learn this before the movie.
And these are all originals.
Yes, except I had them sing a cappella. It had to be You, which is in the public domain now.
Oh, it is. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah. So nice. I was able to actually
use some good internet sleuthing right there.
Great. I couldn't believe it. And when I left it in the script for it to be cleared, I was like, there's no way. And they were like, yep, clears. No problem. So I'm very excited about that. That was one thing I did also is, like, this is so funny. You just want to you don't want to need something and then not have it available, right? And I knew that everything we were shooting, there was not going to be any reshoots. So I wanted to give myself options on things and know what my options were. So if I was going to make a decision on the fly about something, I could do that. And music was one thing that I nailed down the songs that they were actually going to sing on camera, because that was very important. But I also because I knew my editor was going to be editing as we went down back in Los Angeles. Before we ever started shooting, reached out on Facebook and said, who are my musician? And to my musician friends who I knew. And I was like, send me your stuff. Send me links to your stuff, the songs that you totally own.
That's a fun playlist you got to put together.
Oh, it was awesome. And it was great. And I got to know so many new artists that way, which was awesome. And I also just was like, you can find really talented people who, their music is available, and you can actually support a brand new artist that is excellent. And that was great to be able to say, this is the vibe. These are the people that I like for this thing, Yeah,
then you can go and you can put up your official Spotify playlist from the movie and have all of them in there.
Yes, I'm dying to promote all of them. I'm so grateful to them for loaning their music to me. It's like amazing.
Now, you did you actually play the music on set? Or is that like just another, like that's another sound thing? Like you have to have good sound, so you don't want it to interfere with the dialogue.
I got ahead of myself because that's a post thing.
Okay.
That's a post
I was just curious because you had the people singing a cappella, so obviously they're doing that for real. But I was just curious if they actually were really listening to the music that you had, or if they just had heard it and they were just acting as if they were listening to the song and just playing it back in their head. Oh,
I had a fantasy that there's a dancing scene in there, and I had a fantasy that it would all just be live and they would really be listening to it, and no, that's not what happened. They're like, no, you can't do that. Like I did play something, so they were all sort of dancing on the same beat.
And then you stop it when the cameras start rolling.
No, it played underneath, but because they're all mic'd, and the music was low. And I think maybe we gave them a taste of it, and then I don't know, but they stayed on beat. It was incredible. They were really good. And the one thing I did do live is there's a wedding, and we had characters singing at a wedding, and they actually sang that live. I had a friend, I had to change the key at the last minute. I had a buddy in LA who could play guitar like a master, Jeff Weaver. And I sent him the song, and I was like, the instrumental, and I was like, can you transpose this down? Like, could you play this for me, down a half a key or whatever it was? And he did. He sent me the recording. We played the recording over a loudspeaker, and Rory O'Malley, who plays the Peter in the movie, he sang it live.
Wow. Was he air guitaring? Like he was pretending to
We had
play?
Shalim Ortiz, who plays a character in the movie. He was pretending to play guitar.
Okay.
Yeah. So we just faked it.
And just keep him off the side, soft focus, so you don't have to worry about people checking making sure that his fingers are in the right positions.
Yeah, people definitely should not check that.
We're already getting behind the scenes information, man.
But I love they were also game. You're like, hey, could you learn 3-part harmony? And they're like, sure. It was amazing. You go, okay, thank you.
These are the kind of people you want on your set.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure. Why not? Let's do that too.
Yeah.
Okay. So day one.
Yeah.
So here we are. So, so what is, without revealing too much of the plot stuff, what is your first shot, first day?
I'm trying to remember the very first shot, the first day. It might have been, I know what it was. Yep. It was Wendy and Nate, they're a married couple. They're packing, and he comes out and asks her if she wants to bring baby wipes. And she looks at him confused. And then he's like, in case we, get any tent business going, like he's offering the most unsexy thing in the world, which is like, should we bring something to clean off after this imaginary sex that we might have? Like it's just
ooh, so romantic.
And in just in a second, this couple, their deal. Like So anyway, that was the first scene on the first day, and then the second day, I think the first scene was. Oh God, the lead, Abby Miller. It was a masturbation scene.
Oh, okay.
And so that was. Luckily, I had been to a lot of talks and things. I'd talked to other directors who had to do sex scenes or anything sexual in nature, and I'd been on TV sets where they'd done that. And I knew a couple of intimacy coordinators, which is kind of a new position that has come.
Right.
To be on sets. And so I really did get a sense of how we needed to handle it to make Abby as comfortable. Homework. Yeah. So I was ready to be fully professional and very protective and I was. And then she was so comfortable that inevitably, she just was, it was fine. I didn't even have to be that careful. And she wasn't naked or anything. It was like, but still it was like, wow, she really had to, she had to go there, It was,
okay.
It was, yeah.
And so what is directing a scene like that like? Like what do you have to? What notes do you have to give to an actress?
Oh my God, it's crazy.
I mean, I don't want to be. I'm not trying to be gross. I'm just curious.
No.
Like as you're trying to do it, like what? Like okay, I need you to be more. I mean, is it really just physically? Like I just need you to turn your shoulders so that like.
Yes.
Is it really like mechanical in terms of that, or is there actually like this is how I want your face to look?
It can be mechanical. It's there were times when the script supervisor was like, so when she orgasmed the last time, she had her hand up, hanging on to the bed. So she needs to put her right hand, so there was stuff like that.
Continuity.
She was pretty, yes. She was really pretty good at continuity overall. Like, so there wasn't, and I knew that this was meant to be fun and playful and also part of the gag. I'm just giving it all away, but hopefully it'll make people want to see it. Part of the gag is you think she's with someone. So we shot it from many different angles where there's like a couch blocking her lower region. And then there's, and then she has her legs up. So you think there's a person there.
And she's talking.
Yes, she's talking. She's talking a lot. Right. And so that was really the direction is I would have to I would come up with an idea of something else she could say that I thought was funny. And so I'd be like,
alts at her.
Yeah. I knew she had to say the person's name because that was important to the script. And then I knew that I wanted certain jokes that would make you think that there's somebody there. And then beyond that, it was honestly like, okay, we're going to do a pan shot and you have to masturbate the whole time. Okay, now we're going to get it from this angle and you have to masturbate the whole time. Now we're going to come in and we're going to get it like here and you have to masturbate the whole time. And then we're going to get a close up twice of the moving camera of pieces of you masturbating the whole time. So it was really crazy because, she just had to do it over and over and over again. God bless her. She did it.
And this is where the shot list was important because you had here's the 10 things I'm going to do, and then we're done.
But it's so funny because you're there and you're not. It's for a comedy, right? Like this was not some sort of intimate. It was we were setting up something funny and intimate in that way, and. She's an actress, so everyone felt very like, look, this is, we all know what we're doing here, but I'm getting lost in the movie, right? Every time I'm watching these shots, I'm cutting it together in my head and I won't stop shooting until I know that I've cut something together in my head and I know I have something. And that has been that's very helpful because usually 9 times out of 10, I'll get to the edit suite and they'll be like, you don't have what you need. And I'm like, yeah, I do. And I'll be able to go back and go, what about that? Why don't you put that there?
Nice. And you actually can sort of mentally keep that list in your head?
I don't keep it like a photographic anything. It's more that while I'm shooting something, I'm getting coverage because who knows? Because you also need magic for the editor to go, look what I did. And you go, wow, I never would have done that, right? I'm not the director that just shoots the shots that I know I'm going to use like that necessarily. I have done that and it's extremely efficient and satisfying, but it's fun especially with a comedy. Who knows what's going to be funny, right? Like I like options so that you can try it 3 different ways and one of them is bound to work, right? So I get a lot of coverage. But then, yes, but there are people, like I said, that just shoot limited things, like only what they plan to use in the edit later. Oh,
right. They sort of have pre-edited the movie and they're just filling in their list.
Yeah. And when I'm watching an actor do 3 takes of something, I know that I got that piece that I needed. Like I wanted her to deliver the line that way, or I wanted that moment of her reacting that way, or I liked the way that she got frustrated and threw the pillow off the couch there. So when I see that and I know I have that, and in my head, since I've been watching everything, I know that that'll cut to that master that I also liked. At least I know there's something. And then I can move on. And I don't then go back and know which take it is or anything like that. Sometimes I'll say to the script supervisor, like I said, I like the end of that one, right? But you're cutting it in your head as you're going, you're getting a feel for it, and then you throw it away and you never think of it again until you hit the edit. At least that's how I do it.
Obviously, you shot a ton of stuff by this point before you ever got to this point with shooting your first feature. You did all these independent shorts, like from just you, from micro things all the way up to sort of mid budget. And now this is a movie. Like, this is an actual capital M movie.
Yeah.
Did it at the end of the first day? Did it feel different, or were you just like, oh yeah, this is where I live? Like, I'm just shooting another thing. In terms of either pressure or excitement, like did it feel different to you, or was it just like back on set shooting, just doing my job?
A little bit of both, but because I'm so grateful that I always shot things. I never wasn't shooting something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not true. Like, I'm not like out every weekend shooting a short film, but I would generally do something once, if not twice a year. Right. And I was constantly like, there's the next thing. There's the next thing. I was always kind of working on something. So being on set and being the director was a familiar spot for me. But so that being said, that was great because it allowed me to go, I know how to do this. This is not something I don't know how to do. And I was thrilled. I mean, like, I had soda bubbles in my blood because it was a dream come true. It was literally like my dream come true that oh my God, we were going to get to do this for 17 days. And also, oh God, we have to do this for 17 days, But it was so great. It was like, I saw this vision. I had imagined this happening, and I was actually going to get to do it. And I really loved the story. So I was really excited that I was going to get to tell the story too.
Wow. So you never had any imposter syndrome of like, they're going to find me out, they're going to shut me down, they're going to take me out of here when they find out I'm a fraud?
I was, no. There was one moment where I was having a little trouble communicating with my DP. And that really made me go, oh, I'm messing this up. Something is wrong. I'm really messing this up. I don't know why this is happening because we had such a great relationship, and it was a nut we just couldn't crack. We were not communicating, and we eventually did, which was fantastic. But that was the only moment that I was like, oh God, I'm in over my head. I'm a novice. I'm an amateur. I shouldn't be doing this. But other than that, no. It was like again, like I said, I had seen this happening and I got to do it. I will say this. I had a table read, which apparently, I don't know, it doesn't matter. I would have had rehearsals if I could, but it was COVID. But I had a table read of the script just so we could all get excited about what we were doing.
In person? This was in-person table read?
Yeah, it was in person.
Oh, wow. Okay. I say during that time, that must have been...
Well, again...
A lot of logistics, a lot of high tension, a lot of masks.
There were masks, but we did it outside and we were all vaccinated. Okay. And at that time in Los
Angeles...
You
actually were past that point. All right, good.
Yeah. We had all recently gotten our second shots and we were outside. And at that time in LA... it's like less than 20 people and it's outside and we're all vaccinated. We were allowed to be maskless, and we were also being tested like every other day. But anyway.
And spoiler alert for the end of the production, no COVID.
Yeah, no COVID.
So just if anyone else is worried, no COVID for anyone in the cast from the production. So
nobody popped. It was all good. But it was great because, I cast these people imagining that they can do it, imagining that I have something special, but I don't really know. And for me, it all depends on the actors. For me, as in terms of what I like in content and what I like to direct and my movies, it just depends so much on the actors that if they don't have that spark and chemistry and it's not amazing and they can't deliver the jokes, I'm sunk. And the rest of this is just going to be triage. But we had a table read and they all brought it. And any part where it also really helped me to know what their strengths were and what I would want to bring out, like what I would want to have my eye on, in terms of shooting. Like I got a sense of like, oh, this is what I'm working with. This is great to know. Yeah.
I just imagine going in with like list of anxieties, and then like she's in front of you, go, okay, one less thing to worry about. Click, one less thing to worry about. Like that dude has it unlocked. That actress knows exactly what she's doing. Don't need to worry about her.
Oh my God. I wish I was that way in my life. Like,
Yeah.
you know, because when I'm directing,
Absolutely.
I'm like, I don't want the actors to ever show up and not be off book. So I would be like, okay, I would handle it. I'd be like, so-and-so, you're going to go tell them, blah, 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 you know, we're going to set up this time. I want them practicing their lines. Go tell the actors they need to be off book. Or, you know, like if anything popped up for me, like is that going to be an issue? Okay, I need to make sure that I sit them down. I want to rehearse that scene before we go shoot it. So I'd go to them and be like, at lunchtime, come meet with me. Let's talk it through. So that we had done that before we actually got to set, so we weren't wasting the crew's time having that conversation. That was a great time saver.
Yeah, it's making sure that everybody is not only prepared, but also like on the same page.
Yeah. We actually, before we shot, was it before we shot? I think it might have been the before or one after the first night of shooting once we got up to camp. Because we took a day off between being in town, and then we all drove up to camp, took a day off so everybody could adjust to the altitude. And then we were going to start the next day. And I think,
yeah, of course. I'm sensitive to altitude, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And everyone had just met, and we all got together and watched The Big Chill.
Oh, nice.
And for me,
that's a good tone meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that way back at the beginning too, but to get everybody like, this is the vibe I'm looking for.
We're all going to get ready to shoot the next day. We're all there. It's happening. And they all have been settled into their cabins. You know, it's like and we were snuggled up, laughing, watching The Big Chill and talking about how we wanted this movie to feel that way. We wanted people to leave.
Yeah.
We wanted people to want to hang out with these people and feel like one of our college friends.
So you have a shot list in terms of mechanically, you know, single, 2-shot, close up. I've heard of actors like ranking emotionally where they're at by numbers and that kind of thing. Did you have any type of shorthand for yourself of like what the tone of each scene was? I mean, obviously you rewrote it, and you rewrote it, and you've had it's comes from you in the side, but you're also working and doing a thousand things. Yeah. Did you have anything like notes to yourself about like where emotionally the vibe is supposed to be at for when you would switch scenes? Well, or you just rely on your internal compass?
Yes, I relied on my internal compass. I didn't ever write anything like that down. But again, I did always prep the night before, right? I would be really clear on where we are in the story. And I had really good actors who asked those questions. So we would have those conversations about like, how upset is she? How, is she being passive aggressive, or does she really not understand what she's saying? And we would talk about their motivations and things like that. And they were very good at tracking where they are in the story. And I was very aware of that as well. And the way that I communicated with everybody, from makeup to actors to lighting, everybody. And the thing that we could all get on board with was, I knew how I wanted an audience to feel at the end of a scene. And that informed a lot, right? Like, I want them to feel sorry for you so you can't be doing this thing. Or like, I want them to worry that you're not going to stay together. I want the audience to worry, whatever it is they're thinking, like, I want them to feel relieved by this. And so because of that, that would shape everything, right? That was a real way to track whether or not a scene was successful as we were doing it. And to kind of know going in what we were doing. This is the emotion that we're trying to be the architect of for this scene.
Did you have an average of like how many takes you would do on an individual scene? Like that, like, for one setup? Like, did you sort of like go, 3, 4, 5, and you'd sort of like, oh, I think we got it.
It, depending on how important of a piece it was.
Okay.
Like, there are some things that are just bits, right? Bits that I love and fun dialogue banter that establishes relationship and character, but the movie's not going to die if we have to cut it, So I probably spent less time on that. If it's a very emotional, pivotal scene, then there are probably more takes on close-ups and things like that. But not if, some actors give their best performance first or second take, and then they just get tired. So if I usually would get, I would if there was something I still needed that I wasn't getting, I wouldn't do an entire take top to bottom. I'd be like, let's just go pick this up.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Which is something you can do, especially for comedy, right? If you want them to improvise a last line or just do a line a couple different ways. That's what's so great is it's not insulting and you're not stepping on an actor's toes. You're like, hey, and I talked with them all about this actually. And after we would have a day, I would say, hey, I did this with you. I gave you this note. Was that helpful for you? Well, and they would say yes or no, or this might have been helpful. Like I would say, how am I doing? Like, how is this working for you? Are you getting, and they would go, oh, are you getting what you need? And I'd be like, yeah, I said something and I wanted to know how you interpreted that and if it worked. And so
this conversation would happen after shooting was done? Like,
yeah.
Sort of in the post hangout sort of.
At lunch or, the thing about shooting,
in the quiet moments in the between.
Yeah, there's so much setup and now we have to move the cameras and now we have to get the lighting just right before we can shoot. So I had plenty of time to check in.
Oh yeah, I was going to ask that actually, like what is it you're doing while they're doing all of that stuff?
I'm probably looking at my shot list. And answering questions, right? Do you want this flag here? Do you want, you want to take a look at this?
How's your hair? Is like, yeah.
Do I have to remove 5 of those wine bottles? It's too busy. Or can we move the cheese? That's important to the scene. We got to put that there. So I'm looking at what is going on and adjusting and I don't know, drinking a ton of water and and just trying to like stay in the scene, like just sort of really I'm shooting it in my head before we start shooting.
Did you I know you had at this point you had fully transitioned from actor to director, but
yes.
Was there ever a moment where you were shooting it like, man, I wish I had material like this that I could have done? I mean, was there like a scene you're like, man, I was 20 years ago or whatever, like, I would have loved to have been in a scene like this. Did you ever have like that, just that slight bit of like a little bit of envy of like, oh man, I wish I was.
Oh my God, all 10 of them. But understood, like I wrote these characters, like I love these characters. I would have loved
It's all you. I know you're looking at like, that's all you up there, but did you ever like have that thing of like, oh, I really would have liked to have been like in that scene.
Yeah, that's interesting. No.
Okay. All right.
No, because they became those characters so much. And again, I don't know how I can do 5 million things as a director, but switching from director to actor mode, I don't even think I could do it. Like it's a different muscle, I guess. But I'm trying to think if there's maybe one scene where Jess comes back and interrupts the wedding. And that is a scene, she did it perfectly, but I would have loved to do it because I love that scene so much. And I'm actually, because I'm an actor, it can be, sometimes I have a tendency to like show instead of tell. And not with line readings, but with actual physical movement. Like if I was said, go grab some coffee and then I want you to come around and sit here and then I want you to get up and go over here to the cheese, right? Whatever. And they're like, wait, I do what? It was just easier for me to be like, watch me,
this.
Yeah. Or give them ideas for business or whatever sometimes. But mostly they really had that stuff. Like that's where you go, oh, wow, they're real actors. They come in, they have something going on, they're reacting, they're alive, they're in the scene, they're not standing still waiting for their line. And then, like they really fill it up. They've got opinions on everything, relationships going on, and all while also being professional, hitting their marks and saying their lines. Like it's pretty incredible to watch.
And that's where we're going to stop the conversation for today. If you'd like to hear more of Mandy's voice, she's got her very own podcast. It's called The Mand Cave, hosted in collaboration with her friend, Mandy Kaplan. You'll find it wherever the finest podcasts are found. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the next chapter in the Curiosity Codex. but there are still many pages left to decipher. We're part of the True Story FM family of podcasts. Find out more about us at truestory.fm. Our theme music is Intrusion by Severed Personality, aka Kevin MacLeod. The voice of the Codex is Vicky Hall. Find her on the web at vickyhall.squarespace.com. And my name is Kyle Olson.
The Codex is closed. For now.